Okay, let's begin segment 3. So at this time, I would like to do a very quick review of Lesson C in Unit 8 when we talked about phrasal verbs. Now, you remember that on the previous test, we have already had a short section about phrasal verbs. And so for the upcoming test, the last test, I might include a very small section with phrasal verbs, maybe a different kind of exercise, something similar to our book. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on the board behind me to give a few examples just to remind you a little bit. And then I would like to tell you about the test, what will be on the test, how to prepare. And I will tell you now that just like our previous test, for day 2 this week, we are going to spend preparing for the test, going over the test together. Then you will take the test and we will check the answers together. And so we'll follow the same guidelines that we did on the previous test. Okay, so very quickly, let's look here. So you remember that phrasal verbs are two words that go together, a verb plus a preposition. Together, they create a special meaning in English. And there are, I think, hundreds of phrasal verbs in English. And unfortunately, it's something you have to study and memorize. Okay? Now, something that we talked about in Unit 8 is about separable phrasal verbs and inseparable. Now, we talked mostly about separable. And do you remember what that means? So, after each phrasal verb, let's see, for example, turn on the lights, turn off the lights, turn up the radio, call up your friend. You notice that phrasal verbs have an object. So, because they have an object, it might also mean that the object could take an object pronoun form. So let's give an example here behind me. Let's take the phrasal verb call up, okay? Call up. Now this comes from the old-fashioned telephones, call up and dial, this style, but we can still use it today even with our iPhones. I'm going to call up my friend, okay? So let's give this example. This phrasal verb is separable, okay? So in my example, call up your friends for dinner. Okay, that means invite them for dinner. Call them up. Okay, so I could separate this and put the object. What's the object? Call up who? Call up your friends. So your friends is the object. So it's separable, meaning I can take the object and put this in between the verb and the preposition of the phrasal verb. So call your friends up. Now, what's the pronoun for your friends? Them. Call them up. Okay, in fact, this would be more common in spoken English to simply use the object pronoun. Okay, unless the speaker does not know who you are talking about. All right, now let's see another example below, and this one is inseparable, meaning I cannot separate the verb and the preposition. So think about your family. They miss you. Okay, so what would be the object pronoun? Your family, them. Okay, what's the subject pronoun? If I have your family misses you, I change the order. Then what's the subject pronoun? They miss you. So they is the subject pronoun. Them is the object pronoun. Okay, and so let's try to imagine taking the object and putting it in the middle. Think your family about. Does that make sense? Not really. Think your family about. So this tells me that I cannot separate the phrasal verb or it will lose its meaning and it will not make sense. So I cannot say think them about. So it's inseparable. So however, in Unit 8, we focused on separable phrasal verbs. And you might remember that the activities related to choosing the object pronoun and then separating it. And we had a similar exercise to this example on our last test, you might remember. Okay, so that's a very quick review. So there are a lot of separable phrasal verbs. And when we talked about this before in Unit 8, I believe I gave you a list of a lot of phrasal verbs, okay? So this is something that you just have to remember and practice and study. So on the test, I will probably just choose a very small section about phrasal verbs. Now, you might be thinking, wow, test? We already have another test? So on day 2, as I mentioned, I'm going to guide you through our final exam. So let me tell you now, your only homework for this week is to study. So we have completed a basic review of units 6 through 10. We have already tested on units 9 and 10. So now we're ready to take our final exam, and that will be including units 6, 7, and 8. Okay? So for a moment, I'm going to pick up the board and get some exercise, and I'm going to show you what will be on the final exam. Okay, let's see if you can see it. Good, I think you can, except for a little bit of a glare from the computer. Okay, so we will, like every test, have a small listening section, and I will choose one of the chapters, either 6, 7, or 8, one of the similar topics for the listening part. We will have a reading section. Usually everybody does so well on the reading part, so don't be worried about that. Now the grammar section, we have studied quite a few things in those 3 chapters, so I will probably pick and choose a little bit from all of the different grammar lessons. So we talked about before and after clauses, and we did a little bit of review last week with before and after. And I gave you a homework assignment to tell me about your daily schedule during the coronavirus pandemic, your stay-at-home schedule. So I'm still waiting for a few of those. Okay, we talked about when clauses. Also, we talked about the modals could and should for giving advice. We talked about gerunds after prepositions. Okay, and today we did a quick review with for and since, and also phrasal verbs. Okay, so let me put this down. Okay, and so as I mentioned, I'll probably pick and choose, meaning I'm going to pick a little bit from each grammar point and just give a small section to check your knowledge, okay? So with that said, I hope that our workbook review and practice has been helpful. We have gone back through the units in this term, and I hope that if you do have any questions, something that you feel confused or need more help with, give me a specific request or something specific that you need help with, and perhaps I can talk about it next week before we take the test. Or sorry, day 2 before we take the test. So I just say to you, good luck and try your best to do some study. Maybe you could call your conversation partner and do a little bit of review or practice with someone at home. As I mentioned, day 2, let's do some preparation and I will guide you through the test, and then you will take the test. And I hope that you will follow the video sequence and take the test at the moment when I say, okay, take the test, because I'm guiding you to that moment. And then make sure you take the test before we check the answers. Okay, so let's have a little bit shorter segment today for day 1, segment 3. And I look forward to seeing you soon, and good luck to study. All right, see you next time.